We're going from bad to worse. Over the weekend, we learned that Russian missiles attacked just 12 miles from the Polish border, really trying to threaten NATO there. Meanwhile, you've got Iran lobbing missiles into Iraq near the U.S. consulate. And now Russia is going to China asking for aid and support. Like I said, from bad to worse. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish. A quick reminder that portions of today's program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals, specifically gold, as I've been telling you all along, given the inflation in our economy. So go to legacypminvestments.com today. You can call them at 1-866-589-0560 to get more information about investing in gold. Tell them I sent you. They will take very good care of you, I promise. Anyway, back to the disaster that is the world today. Russia really escalating things now. And we've got Jake Sullivan from the NSC heading over to Rome today to meet with the Chinese to try and help influence them. Look, I'll tell you, to me, this should be pretty simple. You're with us or you're against us. And guess what? We've got the power of sanctions to help enforce that. You do business with us or you do business with them. So apparently India is all excited, thinking that they can get some really cheap oil. And Russia's trying to get them to buy that really cheap, heavy oil. Well, I would just say to India, great, guys, you want to do that? Go for it. But you know what? You're not going to do business with the United States of America, the number one largest economy in the world. We need to use sanctions with precision right now. We need to use sanctions with might right now. Granted, it's a tricky situation. It is not an enviable spot to be in right now. This has escalated in ways that I don't think anybody could have anticipated. I mean, we knew, I warned you, Joe Biden wasn't going to be great for the U.S. economy, nor for the international scene, but I don't think anybody could have anticipated that we would actually be looking at kind of World War III scenario. In other words, it is that bad right now. And we've got to make sure that we've got some clear heads there that are able to utilize the power we do have. Again, going back to the fact that we are the world's largest economy. So before we start escalating to the idea of troops, etc., I would say we ought to be using all the sanctions we can. And you know what? We still haven't. And you know what? Europe still hasn't. For goodness sakes, Europe says it's still going to import Russian gas. It's going to just reduce its imports by 2/3 by the end of the year. I'm sorry, guys. That's not enough. You've got to actually pull the plug. You got to actually cut the cord. Enough with the Russian gas, okay? And the whole world has to do that. And guess what? If India is getting the oil or if India is getting the gas, we cut the cord with India as well. If China wants that gas, we cut the cord with China as well. We can drill here at home. You know how much of an advocate I am for all of that. Projects that aren't yet up and running, we can look to Venezuela, by the way, as well. I mean, in the scheme of things, all right, beggars can't be choosers, and we've got to be thoughtful about where our friends are in the world. I don't want the Russians hanging out down in Venezuela, do you? So it's important we repair that relationship and that we access whatever oil we can right there and keep the Russians away from our Western hemisphere. But again, being thoughtful about this. I hope we've got some thoughtful people in there. I don't like the idea that Joe Biden the other day stood up in front of all those reporters and they said, hey, is there any chance that you'd be willing to send U.S. troops? And he said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, I don't want to send any U.S. troops to Russia. I think that's a smart idea. But do you think I want to telegraph that to the rest of the world? Do I really want to tell Putin there's no chance in HELL we're going to do that? No. Let him guess. Let him be worried. Let him not think that the West is weak. Back to sanctions for a moment. We still haven't fully sanctioned. We haven't sanctioned him. We haven't sanctioned his family. We're going after the oligarchs. We need to go after everyone. The sad thing about this, and I'll just tell you, is when it comes to sanctions, what you typically see is that it hurts the people themselves. So the Russian people are going to be ostracized. The Russian people that are losing their McDonald's, their Coca-Cola, all of the American brands that employed people there, all leaving, and they'll be left with nothing, considering we have frozen all their dollar assets, considering that we have sanctioned them, and not even totally fully yet. I mean, it's going to get much, much worse before it gets better there. They will become the North Korea, if you would, of Europe. And in doing so, will be stripped of any economic opportunity whatsoever. So he is isolating his people. He is hurting his people while simultaneously killing his own people. Think about this for a second. Do you know that 11 million Russians have relatives in Ukraine? This is kind of like us saying, okay, we're going to fire a bunch of missiles on Texas. That's not going to go over well, right? In the United States of America. Now, granted, they have a completely controlled narrative. You have state TV that's pushing forward one point of view and one point of view only. And if you dare to utter something different, guess what? You get locked in jail for 15 years. And that's best case scenario because, they may just kill you as well. So you've got a problem there in terms of the people not having the real information, those that are getting it in some way, shape, or form. And don't forget, they're cutting off Google. They're doing a lot of things, but there's still ways for information to seep in that Russia is not totally North Korea yet. And I think people are really unhappy. The Russian people can't be okay with this. So perhaps the answer ultimately is to see enough pressure there from the people, hopefully some pressure from the oligarchs who don't like having their lifestyle completely upended, and ideally pressure on his inner circle, which my sources tell me is quite close. And this is what makes it challenging. It's the same with North Korea, right? But honest to God, Putin actually looks worse than the guy in North Korea now, because at least the guy in North Korea hasn't pulled anything like this. We are looking at a real threat, if we're not careful, of a World War III scenario. China hopefully will come to its senses. Look, China, say what you want about China, and you know that there's not a lot of love lost, for me with China. That said, the Chinese tend to be practical and they thrive on stability, whereas Vladimir Putin thrives on chaos. And so they don't like this chaotic environment. And they know where their bread is buttered, so to speak, with the United States of America. In other words, one would much rather have a trading partner like the U.S. than Russia, which really offers nothing. It's a very, very small economy. So one has to hope that cooler heads here will prevail. But ultimately, there's no off-ramp for this man, Vladimir Putin. He's a madman that has done such atrocious things. He will go down in history as a war criminal. And this makes it in some ways more complicated because there is no easy off-ramp. There's no peace negotiation at this point, other than perhaps he lives the rest of his days out in Siberia. I want to turn to one of our sponsors, one of our most wonderful sponsors. I just love these guys because you know what? They're representing my values. They're representing your values in Washington, D.C. and in states all across the country. This Association of Mature American Citizens, AMAC as it's known, they're standing up for you, they're standing up for me, and they are standing up for the future of America. I'm all for being protected. We all need protection right now in Washington, D.C. And it seems like the people that are being protected are kind of the ones that you wouldn't want to be top of the list, whether it be criminals or illegal migrants, corrupt politicians. I say now, you know what? It's time to protect conservative values. It's time to protect everyday Americans, our beloved Americans that we need. AMAC, the Association of Matured American Citizens, is standing up for you, standing up for the future of America. AMAC is the conservative voice for mature Americans, and they're standing up for the causes that all freedom-loving Americans share. So by joining AMAC, and I want you to join, by the way, by going to amac.us/Regan, that's REGAN, amac.us/REGAN. By joining this for just $16 a year, you can combine your efforts with over 2.3 million members who share your values and my values. And guess what? You're going to receive all kinds of great discounts, exclusive benefits, like discounts on travel, cell phone plans, a whole lot more healthcare. These are the things that really come in handy. So it's a great deal. Like I said, just $16 per year. You can become a member. Do this now. It's time to protect your faith, your family, your freedom. Go to AMAC today by joining amac.us/REGAN, my last name, and take a stand for America. I want to turn now to the economic implications of everything that's happening around the world, because this is not good. You've heard me say it for a while. Inflation, inflation, inflation. It's here and it's getting worse. There are now stickers on a bunch of gas pumps and grocery store aisles that people have found where it's a picture of Joe Biden pointing to the very high gas price and a smile saying, I did that. Yeah, he did that. He did that. But let's be very clear. He's going to try and blame Russia, and you're going to be able to blame Russia. I get it, for future problems. But what we're dealing with in the here and now, the increase of 7.9% in consumer prices, that's all on Joe. That has nothing to do with Russia. It's going to get worse. It's going to get a whole lot worse. Believe me, I would not be surprised by the busy summer driving season to see $9 a gallon at the gas pumps. And that's going to have a tremendous effect, negative effect on our overall economy, because you know what? When you're spending that much money on gas, you don't have as much money to spend on other things. Consumer spending, don't forget, makes up 70% of the overall economy. This is why we need a strong, thriving middle class. But when spending gets eaten into by basic needs like food and energy, which is exactly what we're seeing play out, well, then people don't have as much money to spend on all those other things. And this is why the threat of stagflation now has become very, very real. You have inflation, right? The increase in prices because of the increase in energy costs, coupled with a very slow growth environment because people aren't spending money on lots of other things. And consequently, here you are right back in the 70s. I mean, it's surreal how we're right back in the 70s, complete with the Cold War. That's, by the way, not so cold, right? This war that's heating up. The economic consequences will be severe. Now, if you look at the polls and the studies, what you see is the majority of Americans are okay with higher gas prices, knowing that we're cutting Russia off. And I think that that's sort of a moral thing, right? We're all willing to take some pain because we don't want innocent children being slaughtered in Ukraine. So we're willing to do that. But now it's on Joe to kind of think more creatively here, and he doesn't even have to think that creatively. Again, we have a tremendous energy business right here in the United States. So it's time to get that all up and running. It's time to look at green energy alternatives, and it's time to go around the world and say, okay, which countries can we do business? Iran, I'm sorry, you're out of the picture. In fact, this weekend, you really blew it, getting yourself out of the picture there with that little stint. The problem, too, with Iran, keep in mind, they're effectively a client state of Russia, so Russia may have put them up to that, and it was timed with Soleimani's death and this, that, and the other, but they've made it very clear we can't do business with them. So we need to be more creative and thoughtful about who else is on the planet that's not going to be a complete, utter disaster. But we need to, I'm going to get back to this bottom line, stand up for our values, stand up while we can, because we are the world's largest economy. So let's make sure that we're not going to be threatened with higher gas prices. Let's make sure that we keep our thing going on. Let's make sure that we help Europe by being able to export our energy to Europe. These are kind of no-brainer things to do. And as I said, we all wish the Keystone Pipeline was turned on and working right now. We need to find solutions. This honestly isn't that hard. They're making this much, much harder for themselves. And while I'm reluctant to take shots at Joe Biden and this administration while we've got such a situation going on, I will say this, the guy is not bright if he can't figure out how to turn the spigots on here at home in the United States of America so that people are not faced with $9 gas. This should be the priority right now. This is going to continue developing. Let's hope that things are worked through in Rome. Jake Sullivan, again, sitting down with his Chinese counterpart to try and diplomatically come up with some solutions. I do not think that China would be well served working with Russia on any of this. This would be disastrous for China, disastrous for the world. So hopefully they're going to do the right thing. India, we should all be quite discouraged by if they're willing to sell the world out so that they get a little bit of cheap oil. This is a big reminder, though, everyone. Oil makes the world go round, okay? You can talk all you want about green energy, and I'm a big believer in its future, but we don't have it in the here and now. We need oil. We need natural gas, and every country should remember that in order to have autonomy and independence, you need energy. Well, that and apparently nuclear weapons, right? Because you know that Ukraine's sitting there saying, why did we give those up in 2004? Understandably, it was a mistake, clearly. Anyway, we're going to have a whole lot more on this in tomorrow's show. So I encourage you again to make sure you're subscribing. Make sure that you have hit the like button on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you subscribe on Rumble. And I will see you on my website, trishintel.com, trishintel.com, where you can get all your news and information. And back here, of course, with you tomorrow.